Let's move on and talk about critical discourse analysis and textbooks. Textbooks can be an important site for creating knowledge as well as for creating certain kinds of ideologies. For example, nationalism, religiosity, and many other socio-political ideologies can be worked on or worked through these textbooks. So, therefore, they present an important site for critical discourse analysis. In the beginning, I'll just introduce you to what kind of ideologies can be fixed in or through textbooks, and how textbook can be a possible site for critical discourse analysis. I'll just throw some light on the connection between textbooks and critical discourse analysis. Researchers from a wide range of contexts and fields of study have focused on their own textbooks in order to figure out various kinds of influences embedded in those textbooks. Textbooks, broadly speaking, can be an important form of media through which we can shape the values, knowledge, ideologies, and the future thinking of our generations. So, therefore, in all cultures of the world, textbooks are taken seriously for one reason or the other. And in those cultures where they are not taken that seriously, or we think they just ignore how the text should be introduced in a textbook, they are criticized for this. And that probably leads us to think that textbooks and the material in those textbooks are very important for making the mind of our future generations. That's why we need to look into that what is included in a textbook, or and how this is culturally, socially, politically is suitable for a society or not. You might have heard this debate in your society also, and you might have seen that what has been included in a textbook is useful or not. This kind of debate is even common in some general academic situations also. But as far as critical discourse analysis is concerned, this can be a potential site for it. According to Gilchrist, textbooks result from a complex production process. They go through various filters, including ideological, political, and then physical filters regarding their shape, size, number of pages included, and many other concerns, font size. They go through a very complex production process, and they may involve multiple compromises in relation to different perspectives. Sometimes authors may be very cautious regarding a tricky issue in a society because they would not like to be polarized towards a certain perspective, and in certain situations they probably would say something unequivocally, especially the things about nationalism, and that might confront certain communities or people in that society even. But in the contemporary world, the discourse about nationalism is very common in textbooks across the world. Textbooks reflect and constitute what is collectively acceptable or accepted as sayable in a society. In other words, what is collectively acceptable in a society. By that we mean something to which most of the people living in a particular society would adhere to, would agree with. So that textbook do not generate much confrontation in the society, because textbooks are not tailor made for this kind of uh, confrontation, or they should be used rather to reduce such confrontations in a society. Therefore, critical approaches to textbooks discourse have helped us reconceptualize textbooks as cultural and political practices in which where there can be interdisciplinary approaches to analyze them. So they are not only a bulk of knowledge which has to be transferred to a generation and then to another generation. Rather, they are sites for cultural and political practices through which various ideologies and power practices are sometimes transferred to next generations, and they are made to believe in certain things. That's what is one of the major objections against certain discourses across the world. Textbooks are also conceptualized as a part of complex process of addressing the young generation uh, in order to make them know about how world works, how various ideologies working in the world may be relevant to them or irrelevant to them. This is explained to future generations. The basic primary job of a textbook is to acquaint our future generation with the ideologies, with the socio-cultural practices we can easily go with. There are two strengths of critical discourse analysis about textbooks, which we can say first, its insistence on a research aesthetic of smallness and slowness, working on various aspects of textbooks by focusing on how various lexicogrammatical or grammatical patterns are used to construct certain socio-semantic features, the meaning making process, and how the readers have been addressed to, have they been treated as some kind of agents or mere subjects. Secondly, these approaches draw on the core conceptual issues, the power politics, for example, environmental issues, various historical issues have been addressed to in these textbooks, and this kind of treatment to historical or social issues also is based on certain ideologies. Gilchrist has also certain important points regarding textbooks and which can be useful in their critical discourse analysis. For example, uh, Gilchrist believes that textbooks design can be a powerful tool, can be a very useful tool to analyze what kind of ideologies have been shaped in those textbooks. For example, which issue has been given what space, what kind of pictures accompany the explanation of those issues, or at which place those issues have been placed in a textbook. And therefore, they can be a powerful tool for teaching and learning certain social processes also. Well, there could be many critical approaches to map important discourses in textbooks. Among them may include looking deeply into issues like racism, nationalism, immigration, and other topics in textbooks. And then there can be another approach that is systematic functional linguistics, looking into various functions being performed by the text used in those particular textbooks. Then McGilchrist has also highlighted that how the findings of different researchers speak to the construction of knowledge, to the theory of knowledge, and the fragility of knowledge constituted in and by the textbooks. So textbook, as I said earlier, can be a very rich source for constructing certain ideologies and transferring certain knowledges and ideologies to the future generations. They should be taken very seriously because they can make or unmake a generation or a nation. They can make or, as I said, spoil the future of a generation. Therefore, analyzing such discourses can be very useful. So I would just sum up here that analyzing textbook is important for our national causes also.